So today what we're going to do is we're going to look at some metric conversions. So we're going to look at how you can change from one unit to another, because we're going to be working with measurements of perimeter and measurements of area, etc. And those units have to be like units. They have to be in the same units in order to be able to do the mathematics with them. So we're going to talk a little bit about making metric conversions. Now, there are lots of different ways of doing this. I'm going to show you one method that I like simply because it has no math in it. Surprise. And then, but you can use any method you like. The book is going to show you a method using multiplication and division. I'm just going to show you a method using moving from one unit to the next and moving the decimals. All right? I don't care which method you like. You use whichever one you know or which one you like to use, okay? Now, so first thing we want to do is we want to just talk about those basic units for each measure. And you're going to be using all of these as we go through. So the basic measure for length is, of course, the meter. Now, or meter. Did y'all do it RE or ER? I don't know. Anyway, there they are both ways. Okay? Then for mass, then you're going to use, that's when you use the gram, right? Then when we do other units, we'll have other basic units. So for these things, we have capacity. Okay. Which is liter. All right, and those are the three basic ones. We're going to be using all of these. And later, we're going to be converting between these basic units even. But today, all I want to talk about is I want to talk about how you can convert back and forth when they're in the same basic unit. All right? So I'm going to use basic unit. I'm going to use just a U for that. Because the beauty of the metric system is that it doesn't matter what unit you're using, the conversions are the same, which is really nice. It's much better than the imperial system that we use still in the States. So here we go. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to just draw you a simple chart. As the base, you have units. And again, that can be liters, it can be meters, it could be grams. It doesn't matter. There's your basic unit is always in the center. As you go to the right, those units are going to get smaller. And you can tell how much smaller by looking at the prefix, the little word in front of that basic unit. As you go to the right, you get deci, you get centi, and probably the smallest one we'll ever use are milli. So deciliters, centimeters, milligrams, doesn't matter what unit it is, they always use the same ones. Now, for us, centi and milli are the most common ones. We rarely see deci except for maybe in some scientific work or something like that. But for this process that I'm going to show you, you need to know all of them. And hopefully, since you've been doing the metric system, most of you, all of your lives, you've heard of these. Now, as you get bigger, there are some that you probably don't know as well. But again, we need to. First, you get deca, then you have hecto, and then you have kilo. And again, you're probably very familiar with kilo, but probably not so much with hecto and deca. And again, those aren't used very often. We generally jump straight from whatever units up to kilo units, kilometers, kilograms, etc. But in order for this particular method to work, you need to know all of them. Okay? Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a method to convert by jumping. Now that's my word. You will never see that anywhere else, but anyway, it really describes what's happening. So we're going to use, but in order to make that work, you have to know all of these. So the ones I have underlined are the ones that you use the most, just the basic units, centi, milli, and kilo. But you need to know all of them in order to make this work. Now, you are certainly welcome to do this mathematically. In some of them, you multiply by 100, you multiply by 1,000, you divide by 1,000. But I find that oftentimes that's confusing, where this little chart will allow you to be able to do it very quickly and easily, no matter what units you start out with. Okay? So let's talk about the steps. First, find the decimal in the original number. Now, there's always a decimal in every number. If there is no decimal, that means it's at the end. All right? And that decimal is the thing that's going to be moving, which is going to make your number bigger or smaller depending on your conversion. So it's important that you understand where it is. So if you don't see a decimal, then put one in. And if there isn't one, it's always at the end. So remember that about numbers. If you don't see a decimal, that means it's at the end. Second, find the original units on your chart. And again, you're not going to have this written out most of the time. You can just memorize it. But if you have it on your chart, you can always just do this really quickly with using abbreviations if you want to. Third, jump from there to your new units. And again, if that doesn't make any sense to you, don't panic. I will show you lots of examples and you'll see how super easy this is. Okay? And that will tell you the number of places and the direction to move your decimal. So all that's really changing here is your decimal is going to move around. So you don't have to do any mathematics here. You just move that decimal. I'm going to pause the recording, give you some time to write all that down. I know I've written quite a lot. So we're going to go to the book and look at some examples. But in the book, they're just going to give you measures of length. But I'm going to change a few of them just so that you see it doesn't matter which basic unit you use. The process is exactly the same. So keep your notes there with you as I'm going to move to the book. All right. So here is the mathematical way, and I notice they just give you those basic 4 most popular units, and you have to divide. Sometimes you have to multiply by sometimes it's times 10, sometimes it's 100, sometimes it's 1,000, and it's perfectly fine if you memorize those because it never changes depending on the unit, so it is pretty self-explanatory, but most people find it easier just to deal with conversions using the chart. It doesn't matter to me which one you use. I'm just giving you a bit of an alternative, okay? So what I'm going to do here first is I'm going to write the chart, and then we're going to do a couple of these. So remember, you have your basic units. Then you have deci, centi, and milli. As you go up, you have deca. Now, and it's a capital D on that side just to show you that it's not deci, it's deca. It's the only one that we use a capital. Then we have hecto, and then finally we have kilo. So let's say we're converting 70 millimeters to centimeters. So again, 70 millimeters to centimeters. Just going to pop to notebook paper to make it a little easier to see. Right? We have our number, but we have no decimal in it. So the first thing is to locate our decimal, and if there is no decimal, it's always at the end. We're going from millimeters to centimeters. Well, millimeters is here, centimeters is there, so that's one jump. So we're only jumping one place, and it's to the left. which means that that decimal is going to move one place to the left. So 70 millimeters is going to become 7 centimeters, because I don't need, if it's 7.0, that's the same as just plain old 7. So you don't need the zeros after the decimal, right? And it's just that easy, right? Now, if you learned that, if you're jumping to the left, that means you're dividing by 10 in this case. That's perfectly fine. Either way you want to do it is fine with me. Okay? All right. So, again, it's just a matter of jumping between units. So say that you had 0.2 kilograms. Who cares? Doesn't really matter what kind of units we're using. And we want to change that to grams. First, we'll look at our decimal, but in this case it has a decimal in it, so it's already there for us. That's easy to do. Then we'll jump from kilograms to grams. Kilograms to grams is 3 jumps. Remember, that can be any of the basic units, liters, meters, grams, doesn't matter. That's 3 to the right. So if I move 0.2, if I move that decimal 3 places to the right, it puts it right there, which means it gives me some blank spaces that I have to fill in. And of course, you can just fill those in with zeros. So it gives you 200 grams. So just determining how many units you're going to jump and in what direction is the key to making this work. Now again, if you want to remember, divide by 1,000, multiply by 1,000, that's perfectly fine. I'm just trying to give you an alternative. Okay? So you're going to look at a couple of those where you're going to be jumping back and forth. You're also going to have some where you're going to be just estimating which unit you need to give. Then these are all measures of length, and you're probably familiar enough to know a meter, how long a meter is. A centimeter is about the width of your fingernail. So think about a centimeter is about the width of your fingernail. A millimeter is about as thick as a coin. So if you're going to measure the length of your pen, right, they just want you to make an estimate of it in the units that they give you, and then you can check your estimates by measuring. What I really would prefer is, which thing would you think you would measure in? For example, the width of a soccer field would be better measured in meters than it would be in centimeters, for example. So think about the watt units you use. Then there are some where you're going to be converting. Okay, here we're going to convert some more. Here you're just adding them, but notice that you have meters, centimeters, and millimeters, and you wanted your answer in centimeters. So what I have to do first is I have to convert all of those to centimeters, and then I can do the addition, right? Okay. Here, how much further? So that means just subtract those two, and since they're in the same units, you're fine. Okay. All right. Then there are a couple of other problems that you can work on with there. All right. So that's all we're going to do today, is just look at converting those units and then answering some questions. So, and we're just going to stick with the length ones, because it doesn't matter what unit they would be in. The process is going to be always the same. Okay? So let me